There you go.
Okay. Oh, that helps a little. I can see you a little bit better. One of my producers for my podcast, Ask Briar, called this room my dungeon, and I was very offended. Very offended. I feel like I have a decent amount of lighting in here. It's
No,
not
it's good.
that
It's good.
bad.
Yeah.
Oh, so hello everyone. Welcome. I am Briar Harvey. This is the lovely Amalie Shaffer. We are here to talk about Q4 planning, or I guess a little bit about Q4 planning. If you have questions, feel free to leave them in the chat and we will address them. The big thing I think we want to talk about, though, is that it's too late for Q4. Sorry, I hate to disappoint you. It's too late for Q4. You should be getting a jump on Q1 now, and we want to talk you through what you need to know to do that.
Yeah.
So, Amalie, for my people, please do introduce yourself.
Okay, sure. Yeah, my name's Amalie Shaffer, and I am one half of Systematic Excellence Consulting, and I am a business operations consultant. So that's working with people to get the systems and processes in their business so that it runs like a well-oiled machine, and to help them manage their teams and their projects more effectively. I generally do that through or via ClickUp. I have a YouTube channel, ClickUp Mastery, and Briar joined me on there live. We did a comparison between ClickUp and Notion, which was awesome. Oh, there's Stacy. Hey, Stacy. And which was really awesome to see the differences and the similarities and stuff. So I teach ClickUp there, but I do consulting, so helping people. I take a look at their systems and things like that, and help them improve them. And then also I do some ClickUp setups through what I call a dedicated workday, where I work with the client to get things set up in ClickUp. So that's me.
I say a lot that it's really important that you use the system that's right for you. Amalie and I both are firm believers in this. So if Notion is not right for you, if ClickUp is the thing for you, I strongly encourage you to see Amalie.
Yeah.
She's who I recommend for ClickUp. Absolutely. So we have Q4 and Q1 planning. And it's too late for Q4, right? If you didn't plan Q4 by now, you've probably actually missed some windows. If you have a physical product, you should have already pitched for holiday gift guides. If you have a digital product, you should already be building out your runway for your Black Friday, Cyber Monday launches. If you have a product of any kind, you should already know what that looks like, because Q4 is interesting. A lot of sales happen in December,
But
but
not a lot of work.
no, not a lot of work. The work should be done. And especially if you own your own business, I encourage you to be really deliberate and thoughtful about that. I take most of the month of December off. I might have things I'm selling, but I don't actively work during those times unless I am teaching, because there's no bandwidth for that. My bandwidth is for sitting with my kids and drinking hot cocoa and watching movies, and that's the bandwidth in the month of December, and you should honor that.
Absolutely.
So you should have started planning Q4 at the beginning of September. You should have led all the way up through to this point to get there. And now you should be planning Q1, because you won't be planning Q1 in December either. So you're going to be doing all the work for Black Friday, Cyber Monday in October, and then building out the runway in November, taking December off, and then hitting the ground running in January with all these big goals, plans, hopes, and dreams. But if you don't have them on paper already, you may miss them.
Yeah.
What is the statistic? Like something like 80% of all New Year's resolutions are abandoned within the first
Two
2
weeks, I
weeks.
think it is. Yeah. Okay, so Stacy said she started planning at the beginning of September, but laying it out now.
And I
And
think that's fine.
yeah, and I was going to say, like, some people work, maybe it's a productive time for some people, and that's fair. I think it really depends on you, your family, what you have going on. And I mean, ultimately, like, time is made up, right? Like, but if you're going to exist in the industry, like, you do have to, live by it. And so when we say that it's too late, it just really, if you want to sit down and knock it out in a weekend and be ready for it, okay, fine. Like, absolutely. There are people that do that and can do that. Like, I've done it. Do I like doing it that way? Not necessarily, but it can be done. So not to say that, like, all hope is lost. It's not. But we're saying that if you're feeling behind, okay, so either get your shit together and get something out for the holiday season, meaning put in the long hours now to get that done, or just it's a wash and just start planning for Q1. And it's up to you, and it depends on how your business is. It depends on what you're selling. It depends on the product. Do you have the product already and you just need the funnel? That might mean that you could get it out. Like, not to say that there's absolutely no hope, but definitely if you're feeling behind, like, make a decision. Either put in some long hours now, get your shit together, get the funnel out, get the products ready, whatever. If it's a coaching program, start planning that, or start planning for Q1.
So I think that it's really important that when we talk about planning Q4, we acknowledge like seasonal rhythms.
Mm-hmm.
And autumn and winter are not the human body's most physically active, sustainable time. So you can plan spurts. You
Mm-hmm.
can plan to do that, like set aside a time and say, I'm going to this weekend get all of these things done, and I'm going to take exceptionally good care of myself, and I'm going to have it all mapped out. And then I'm going to figure out what that looks like for the next 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be very clear about what those goals are and make
Mm-hmm.
sure that they're realistic for the actual time that we are
Yeah.
living in right now,
Mm-hmm.
which is going into the colder months, shorter days,
Yep.
so less time. The human body physically needs more sleep in the winter, and I'm saying this very specifically to my neurodiverse people. You need more sleep in the winter so you can do it. You just have to
Yeah.
be incredibly realistic about it, and you
Yeah.
can't
And very
plan.
intentional too. And
Yes.
as humans, we naturally underestimate how long something's going to take. And so it is important to overestimate. So, and be realistic about your schedule. Like, kids, what are the kids' events that you have going on? School's back in session. Kids are back in school. Like, they're not at home anymore. So, what does that look like for you? And so, being very realistic about what the tasks are, and making sure that you have a plan, right? In my mind, in my opinion, it's not good enough to just have all the things listed out on a Google Doc, right? Like, you need to have your schedule planned out, when you're going to do it, so due dates for it, and it put into your schedule. Like, if you say you're going to do something on a Tuesday, okay, do you have time actually blocked off on Tuesday to do that, right? Like, that's something that I learned, because I really need the structure. I can't just, like, I'm just not a, like, free for all. Like, I need structure. Like, okay, I'm setting aside this time. This is what I'm going to work on. Like, I have to be really intentional about that, in order for me to get it done. And I have to fit that around all the other things I have going on as well. And So I think if you are planning that, making sure that, okay, yes, you have a plan on a Google Doc or a Word, whatever, but then it needs to go somewhere else. There needs to be a living, breathing, like thing that you can manage in a project management tool. That's what I really believe. Like that's in my opinion. So I don't know, maybe other people don't believe that, but I do. And I think it's so important to have that because those are the things that are with the due dates, right? Like it's a reminder, okay, get this done. You can check it off. You can see the progress that you're making. And if you're delegating to other people, then you can delegate those things, and you really need to have that tool, whatever that tool is. But you got to have that to be able to like keep yourself in check and keep your team in check and see the progress. Okay, what do we have left? If you're getting behind on due dates, you have to reassess, but you need some way of seeing the overall thing and what's happening, what's done, what needs to get done, that kind of thing.
So y'all know, and Marisa is here. Hello,
Oh, hey,
Marisa.
Marisa.
So obviously Amalie does ClickUp and I do Notion. If you are having a problem actually blocking out time in your schedule and having a project management system isn't working for you, I really encourage you to take a look at a system called SkedPal. It's SkedPal. And I specifically recommend this one for my folks, but it works for everyone. And what it does is you plug in like your Google Calendar. So that's your non-negotiables, right? And then you tell it what your tasks are, and it will automatically throw things on your calendar in blocks. It takes some time. You have to train it for priorities and what actually matters the most and all of those kinds of things. But once you get that kind of locked in, it will just tell you what your schedule is. And then it removes the decision fatigue. Because I
Yeah.
think that's a big part of it for a lot of people. If knowing the plan is not enough, if knowing the plan just lives in the planning place but doesn't actually get actioned on, then that's probably a decision fatigue issue, and removing those decisions makes things a whole lot easier. Then
Yeah.
you just have to go through and say, oh, this is what I'm doing today. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you,
Hmm.
SkedPal.
Yeah.
Thank you all for
Stacy put the link in.
dropping
Thank you,
me.
Stacy, for doing that. I was just about to grab the link too. And yeah, I think it's really important because I think for me, like I'll just speak from my experience and maybe experience of my clients, but when I sit down to work, if I take that time to figure out what it is I'm going to do or need to do, I've then basically taken away my work time on trying to plan when the planning should be done already, right? Like that should be done, the plan, the list, the things, right? And then I can put it in and start looking. When I'm ready to work, if I've set aside 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever, an hour, I just want to be able to get to work because that's what I set that time aside for, not to sit and start to be like, okay, so what do I need to do today? Now I've now taken away that time and I've used my brain power that I need to get the stuff done in that time I set aside for the planning. Does that, you know what I mean? And so like if I do that, so for me, like I need to know exactly, okay, I need to get to this so I can get right to it and start working on it, or else I start getting distracted, right? If I'm sitting here planning, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that. Next thing I know, my 2 hours is used up because I'm like planning in the moment. And now I have to move those tasks I need to get done to another day because I've now used that time up.
So, two things here. There is a ton of research on the bias of making a decision for today and the bias of making a decision for tomorrow. Procrastinating. That's
Plan,
what
what did
we,
she say? Plan is, oh, procrastinate, but planistation.
yeah, procrastinating. There's an actual term
Okay, cool.
for it, and that's what we
Oh,
call it,
procrastinating.
procrastinating.
Okay.
But the bias for making a decision today is that we will absolutely choose the easier thing today because we're doing it right now.
Yeah.
If I know that I'm choosing for today, I'll pick the easy things because I'm doing them today, and I'll take the path of least resistance. That is simply a fact. So to stem that tide, we plan earlier. If nothing else, we do it the day before, right? You
Yeah,
should
fair.
take
That's good
10
too.
minutes at the end of the day and say, this is what I am doing tomorrow. You are much more likely to enact that plan than you are if you make that plan first thing in the morning, which
Right.
is wild because so many productivity gurus talk about how you should wake up in the morning and make the plan, and that doesn't actually work.
And oh, go ahead.
No, the other thing I was going to suggest is that you also take a look at the bias of that decision making and then figure out the next step. So if I know today that I am planning for tomorrow's harder tasks, what I want to do is leave myself that next immediate action. If the plan is to do the social media calendar, well, that's great. But what does that
Yeah.
actually
Yes.
look like, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
What's that? So do I open that software in my browser before I minimize it for the day? Do I figure out what that looks like in my project management system? What's the immediate first step that I have to take to make that action happen so that when I come to my computer first thing in the
You know
morning,
exactly
I
what you
know
need to
exactly what
do.
it is, and it's already there. There's no resistance. I just get to dive right in because I've already decided. I've already eliminated that decision fatigue, and that makes such a huge difference.
Yeah. So what I started doing when I put project plans together, let's say in my project management tool, if I have something that, let's call it the social media calendar, like we were just talking about, right? That might be one main task. And then I use the subtask to help me break down what it is that I have to do. And then I can put them in order and give them due dates. So if it's designing the images or writing the copy, or maybe it's just planning the themes for the next couple of months, that might be my first step, right? But breaking it down, like not just writing down, okay, I gotta, come up with 3 months of social media posts or so, right? But like actually putting those things down and also being realistic about, like we just mentioned, about what can be done in a day. Like if you have an hour, like some of those quick tasks that you were mentioning, like that are least resistance, like, yeah, maybe those are the ones you get done. Okay, look, I got like 10 minutes. I can quickly get a couple things done. Cool, done. Get that done. But when you're looking at like block of time where you have larger tasks that take a little bit more brain power, are going to take longer, being very specific about what those actions are that you need to take. Like I break things down so small. Like sometimes when I show people the plans or I take notes for people or I give them project plans, like for some clients, like I've created project plans for them or written out standard operating procedures, they're surprised at the detail that I include. But I think the detail is so important, right? Like those details are important, especially if you're delegating, right? Because you can tell somebody like, okay, we need this thing, but like, what are the actual actions? And if you're not the one that's putting the details to it, someone needs to. And so maybe that's your operations person. Maybe it isn't you, which is fine. It depends on how you have your business set up, but the details need to be there. It's so important. It can't just have like a big general thing like, oh, I need to create this funnel. Okay, but there's like 100 steps into creating a funnel. There's
Maybe
a lot to it.
more.
Like, and you have to really break it down. And, if you're going to sit down for the day, you might not be able to get the entire funnel done in a day, right? It's going to take a couple of days. So you really need to write out what's happening in those days. What are the actual tasks that need to get completed? I was just looking. Stacy said, yes, I need the checklist. Who has the master checklist for launches? I have dollars. Oh, I got you. I can make you a checklist. I got checklists for launching all kinds of stuff. What are you launching exactly? Tell me. Dollars in the details. Absolutely. And also, if you're thinking about managing a team, you have to understand what's the workload, what are the man hours, how much are you spending on a project. Something that we've been doing recently, maybe this is getting a little off topic, but we've been refining our estimated time and our actual time of how long things take, so we can really get clarity on how long things take and how much workload, how many projects our team can take on, and what that looks like. And we've been very specific about having them track their time, and then we're updating the estimated times in our tasks, so that way we get really accurate amounts, so we can plan ahead to say, okay, well, we could take a new client in 2 weeks because these 2 weeks everyone's is at capacity, right? And so yeah, definitely dollars are in the details. You got to know how much manpower, how many hours things are going to take, and being able to plan for that. And that takes knowing all those tiny little details of what is it included in a project.
And if you don't know the smallest steps, you're going to miss them, right? So if you say, well, I need a launch calendar with dates on it, but don't maintain what the minute details are of what goes into that calendar, you'll get there and go, oh, well, who created this deliverable? No one. No one created this deliverable because it was never a least smallest piece of the puzzle
Or how
to
do
be
you know how
created.
long something will take if
Right.
you don't know all the details? Like if you don't know all the small things that go into it, how can you even plan for how long something's going to take? Because I think all of a sudden, if you don't have the plan together, you're going to start looking, oh, we got to do this. And oh, we got to add this. And we got to do this. And next thing you know, your 10-hour project has now actually turned into 30, right? Like if you don't really know what's going into it, how can you plan? I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to.
So I think then we're looking at understanding what the smallest actions are,
Hmm.
figuring out ways to implement them on a measurable basis. And then we need to talk about milestones, because this is really important as we come into this fall and winter season. You need to be able to have like stones along the path that you can look at and say, this is how I will know that I am getting this work done. This is how I can see that I am making progress, because once you break things down into the small pieces, it's really easy to get bogged down in the details, right? So how do you build in milestones?
So we use due dates, but I guess it really depends on what we're looking at, right? So if we're talking about like our YouTube plan, like our content plan, we're looking at what's our goal? How many videos do we want to do a week? How many are live? How many are recorded? Right? And we set that up, and then we go in and look at, okay, what topics do we want to cover? And then we start planning in the calendar, okay, when do we want them done? But then I have to consider, how long does it take for each of the subtasks that need to be done in order to produce a video? And we have to look at what else is going on, right? What client work do we have? And then, so we have to fit that in. So we use the calendar to help plan that. We use estimated times to know how long things take. Now, it is helpful that the YouTube production process is a repeatable process. So we now have a pretty good idea of how long things take. And so then we can start planning that way. If we're doing, let's say, a launch or something, we generally break it up into phases. So like phase one, then we would have phase two. So phase one's probably a lot of research, where we're just kind of getting the plan together. Once we have the plan, then we put it into a project management tool. Phase two's when there's like action being taken. So things are starting to get created. We're starting to put the pieces together. Phase three, we do have it together, the deliverables together. If it's a client project, we probably do a review at that point to make sure everything's good. We test things, all of that. And then phase four is really, it's launched. And now we're looking at, okay, how well are we doing? What were our goals that we hit for how many sales that we had wanted? Are we hitting that? What are the, ad spend, that kind of thing? We would start looking at that. But depends on the project, and all of that, to me, the milestones is all built out in the initial planning when we're putting together, okay, when do we want to have this done by? Okay, we know we want to launch by X date, and we know that it's going to take, this long, 30 days to get it done. So we work backwards from there. So at week 4, we want to have this done. Week 3, we want to have this done. Week 2, and then week 1, on and so forth. But that's how we do it. There is in ClickUp, there are ways to use sprints and milestones. We don't use them in the traditional way that is set up in ClickUp, but we do use specific due dates for things, and work off of there, in that way. So what about you? Do you do something similar? Oh, I can't hear you.
Oh,
Oh, there
so
you are.
I
I
like
got
to
you.
build in milestones as a very specific, like, waypoint. As in I will know that I have made progress when I have gotten to this email, or I have gotten to adding this particular program to the landing page, right?
Okay, okay.
There, because you know what all the steps are, but it's easier to say, I think, what it is I'm looking at when that XYZ thing or whatever it is has been completed. And they're, I'll be honest, kind of arbitrary. They're
Mhm.
not,
But they're important
but they
regardless if
are.
they're, yeah.
Well, and they're all important. Like, you can't do the launch unless the email sequence is built,
Yeah.
right? And you have to have the landing page. So when you're finally getting to the stage of linking the shopping cart or whatever,
Right.
right? We're making this work. When we get to the testing phase, it's that first successful test, right? And I always like buy myself some washi tape or something when I can get through that first successful test. So it's really about making the decisions ahead of time, though, for both
Oh,
of
yeah.
us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't think it doesn't really matter what the milestone is or how you enact it. It should feel right to you either way. But the key here is I've decided ahead of time.
Yeah.
Amalie has decided ahead of time that these are the points where we're going to know that we are on the right track.
Yeah. And it also helps with doing the planning ahead of time and knowing how long things take or when you want them done by, to prevent what we call calendar surfing, where you like keep moving things and keep moving things and keep moving things, right? Because
I've never heard that phrase, and I'm totally stealing it because that is such a, oh my God, I do that shit with my content all of the
right.
time.
But what happens is if you have things already planned, right? And then you start calendar surfing other things, then you have to figure out, okay, something's not going to get done or something has to be pushed to a later time, right? Because now you started to push things and push things and push things. Not to say that there aren't instances where that is necessary, but if you just start calendar surfing a bunch of stuff, right, it's going to back things up. And there was, with one of my clients, we had a discussion. She has sometimes, her clients will not get things done on time, and so then she ends up having to calendar surf their end date to launch their website or whatever. And so one of the things that we put in place is when if they go past the due date of when they said the project was going to be completed, they pay a monthly fee, because it's then affecting all of her other future plans that she's already put in place, because she's now had to calendar surf a bunch of end dates. And so it's really important, whether it's clients or your own internal projects, to remember that, like, if you put a due date on that, and to stick to it so that you can get it done and not just keep pushing things and pushing things, because it's really just going to get added on top of all the other things that you have planned in the future.
And in so many cases, especially when you're looking at VA services or project management services, you've already paid for that time. You're not getting it back.
Right.
I charge I charge a monthly retainer. That time is that time. The same is true. I just paid my and like I'm preaching to the choir here, but really I do this shit too. I just paid my monthly VA fee and I had a whole bunch of hours last month that I did not use. And do they roll over? No, they do not. No, they do not. As they should not. Not when the service is the business, right?
Right.
And for service providers like VAs, OBMs, project managers, we're doing the work even if you're not asking us to do the work, and we cannot pile more work in
Yeah,
just because you
right.
said, well, I'm available for your work now. Well, that's great. I'm not. So just be mindful of the man hours, especially if you are using other people, and be aware of calendar surfing and how it affects the rest of your staff
Yeah.
or your contractors. Those are important things to
Or
know.
client deliverables too,
Mhm.
because if you're calendar surfing, let's say your own stuff, but then you already have client projects and due dates for their deliverables, now you're just kind of pushing things on top of other things. Um, and I think overestimating to until you get a good idea of how long things take is really useful. So it's something that we started doing because we just realized that we were underestimating how long things were going to take. So what I explained to my team is we're going to plan as if things are going to take a lot longer. So we put things into the future. And I told them, if you get done with something and you want to go to the future and pull something back into the current or pull it into the current week, by all means do that. But we're not going to set ourselves up for failure and put so much shit in this current week that no one can get it done. So then everyone feels like, well, what did I get done? And now we're just calendar surfing all those other tasks that didn't get done. So we've actually spaced it out. And so now what they'll do is, let's say they'll get something done and they'll have some extra time. They'll just go pick something from the future and pull it in and leave us a comment. Hey, I'm going to get started on this. Cool. No problem. I'm not mad that you're going to get started early. Like
More time, more space. And I think that's a great way to pull us back to what I wanted to
I know we did
wrap
a little bit.
with was that I want you to start planning Q1 now.
Yeah.
Right now. Here at the beginning of Q4, I want
Yeah.
you to really be intentional about what you want 2022 to look like. I want you to go into next year with spaciousness, with more time, and with a whole lot more of a sense of what you need to get things done in a way that you're not working 60 hours a week or hustling all the time,
Yeah.
and because that's not doing anybody any favors.
Yeah. So let me say this. So for planning, this is essentially the process I would start with. I would start with a Google Doc and I would start just we're not prioritizing anything, we're just getting it out there. What is it that you want to get done, launch, sell, promote, whatever next year, right? We'll just even say Q1, maybe Q2. Get it out onto a Google Doc. Just get it out there, all those things. We don't want to get into the details quite yet. The details come later. Once you do that, then you want to organize it into priority. What's going to happen in January, February, March, and then go that way. So I would probably break it out into month of like when you want to do that. I'd pick end dates of when you want those things. So if you're launching a course, I would say, when do you want to launch that course? Pick the date. And then you can go in and start getting into the details of, okay, what all goes into launching the course, creating the course. And again, I haven't moved from the Google Doc. I'm still in the Google Doc. I'm still getting just all those things out of my head onto something. And then you can start figuring out, okay, about how long do things take, give some estimations. Then I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it into the project management tool. I don't do planning in the project management tool because it can get really overwhelming. I plan first in a document where I can see all the notes and I can start moving things around and I start seeing it. Then I go in and that's where I start to create the tasks. I start to delegate things. I put the instructions, I put the Google folder link, I put, all of those little things. I start to build out the subtasks. And as I'm doing it, I'm looking at the calendar and I'm seeing, okay, this is going to take a week. I want to review it by this day. That's one of the milestones we do use is when do I want to review it by? So it needs to be done by this date so I can review it by this date or get it to the client to review by this date. If they have changes, the changes need to be done by this date. So thinking through those little things. Once you have that, once you have those details, then you put it into the project management tool, start putting due dates to it, right? While you're doing that, you're looking at the calendar because you're looking at what clients you have, what everything else in life that's going on, and you start to build it out with that in mind of what you're going to have time for, what your team's going to have time for, and then go from there, start putting it into the project management tool. That's really the sort of process that we use as far as planning.
So some suggestions that I have for my tactile folks, because most of my people have to write stuff down. That
Oh
Google
yeah, write
Doc
it
just
out.
doesn't live
Shoot,
anywhere.
I got me a little, I know you can't really read it, but I got my little plan here, our funnel that I've been working on. I got it written out right here.
So paper works, index cards work. Steph Crowder has this thing that's going to be coming up here soon. She calls it Your Year on a Wall. She does desk calendars and then sticky notes. So you can visually map out what that year looks like with color, with things that you can, if you got to have the tactile stuff, if you have to touch it, then I encourage you to embrace that.
This is what I use. I got this from Julie Stoyan like a really long time ago. She calls it her whiteboard. It's just this like I don't know if you can see it, drawing thing. And it's just big white paper. And I leave this by my desk and I use this. So I just use it as like a whiteboard and I just write on it. I draw pictures on it. I draw out my funnels, the different steps, if I need to, because sometimes I like to write things down, but if you're using, or Google Doc, whatever works for people, I like to write things down and then I generally go from there and put it into, if I'm doing something for a client, it's in a Google Doc. If it's for myself, it's usually on paper.
And you and I work with that in a way that has some flexibility,
yeah.
Right? Because I have to document my client work in some
I can't just send them pictures of my notes.
No, much as I would. But I will say I have started limited testing of a Rocketbook for this, right?
Oh yeah,
so,
okay.
Rocketbooks, or you can use whatever kind of OCR character reader, but I can write it and then take the picture and then it gets translated into text and then I can place that someplace. So that's a good way to do it too if you have to have the quadrants. But yeah, I'm telling you, the year on a wall, if you have a wall where you can, because that's my problem, I do not have a wall where I can stick 12 months of calendars on a wall, but you can visually see the year in a way that's going to make a huge difference for your ability to actually plan it out. And the first thing you do with your year on a wall is you map off your time off, right? I'm not working here. I'm not,
that's so important. Yeah.
Get that one out first, and then you can plan launches. Then you can plan events. Then you can, I have never heard of that one, Stacy. So I'm going to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Because y'all know I love my new toys. But you gotta really use the tools that work for you, and then if necessary, and I don't like the duplication of it, but if you have a team, you got to have the digital platform at this point in time.
I would also say that doing the planning helps you understand your budget too, because if you can see what's coming up in the next 3, 6, 9, even 12 months, you'll understand who you need to hire if you don't already have them. If you're looking to hire a project manager for your launch, you need to know that, and you need to bring that project manager in when you're planning. So being able to know when you're going to have those things going on lets you know what you'll need to hire for and what you need to budget for. Do you have the budget? What can you afford? And then you can start looking for those people early on versus waiting till the last minute, like, oh my God, I need a copywriter right now. Like it just helps with all of that. It also helps you figure out what are you going to charge, because if you got to hire a bunch of people to pay them to create this thing, you're going to want to integrate that into what you're charging for the program or the course or the
Right.
product that you're
This
launching,
allows you
whatever.
to build in overhead in a much
Right.
more efficient fashion because oh, I've got this launch coming.
Bye,
Oh, I
Stacy. She's
got to
got to run.
charge
Thank
this.
you for Stacy has to run. Bye. Thank you for dropping
Love
all
you,
those comments.
Stacy. Thank you. Yeah, know what you got to charge, know what you have to build in. I really start now. Start 2022 right now
Yeah.
and draw it out first, visualize it, and then it
And if you
becomes
need
easier
help,
to
get
map.
help. And if that doesn't mean
Mhm.
that it has to be Briar Eye, if you need help, if you're struggling with that, like get help. Because if it means the difference between you getting those programs launched and making a bunch of money, get the help now to get it in place. If you need it, get it.
Yep, that's what we're looking at, y'all. And I think that about does it for us today,
Yeah.
Amalie. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. I'm so glad that we could do this. As always, if you have questions, please do leave them. Let me know that you are watching the replay, and Amalie or I will be back.
Yes.
So thank you so much for being here,
Oh,
y'all.
thank you.
Love you. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.